So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's webinar from Leicester Digital. It's myself, Ann Stanley, and I've got Katie. Hi, Katie.
Hey, everyone.
We've also got Tom in the chat answering questions today. It's going to be a slightly different arrangement from normal because we're actually going to be showing the video recording from my presentation at LDL, which is Leicester Digital Live, which we held just over a month ago at Winstanley House. The other thing that's important to know is that we are collecting for Unicef for their Romanian fund. So I know that Katie will, pardon?
Ukrainian fund.
Oh, sorry. What did I say? Did I say Romania? Okay.
Yeah, don't worry. It's in one
Ukrainian fund. Yes. I was talking to somebody from Romania 2 days ago. This is probably why it's in my head. We've got a poll. So we'll do the poll. And then I'm going to hit the record on the button and you'll hear my voice. But I'm actually going to be disappearing because I'm actually training at Leicester, which is why I'm in the office today. So let's do the polls to start with. I will be around for the first few minutes. So, okay. So do you work together in teams to ensure integrated marketing happens? Yes, all the time. Sometimes for various campaigns, maybe, but not often enough. No, not really. And we should be doing this. Oh, okay. So I'm going to click what I want. So if you guys would like to click the button, we'll be able to see what the response is. Okay, so we have, now that's really interesting, 60% of the people saying yes all the time, which is much, much higher than I thought it was going to be. I'm guessing it will depend whether you work in-house or not, and also the size of your organization, because the bigger you become, it's quite often that you become more and more siloed. So it's really interesting to see that that's actually it's dropped down a little bit now. It's now sort of 40%. So it's about 40%, and then it's pretty much an even split of the others. So let me start polling our other question. This is, what channels do you use in? So let me just hit that one. So which of the following channels do you or your company use to market your business? None. I'm a student or currently in an organization that has no marketing. I use content, PR, SEO, paid search. I Google ads, organic social such as Facebook or LinkedIn, paid search social just as Facebook and Facebook ads. Now I would have put another, but I ran out of time because, as I said, we were quickly going on to another meeting. So if you'd like to click those, you can click several. So I'm going to click all of those four. And then what's happening with that poll? Let me see where the results have gone.
Quite interesting. 30% are using organic social such as Facebook. SEO, content and PR is 25%. Paid search 23%. Paid social 16%. And 4% are a student or an organisation that has no marketing. So I always love to see these results.
The one that surprised me the most is the lack of paid social, only 15%. I would have thought that was going to be a lot higher than that, because if you want to get to new audiences, that's the perfect way of doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my camera off, and I'll just keep my sound on just a minute, just to make sure everything's okay. And then we're going to go over to the video. Let's see, check that is working fine. And then I'll turn my sound off. And my talk today is integrating search and social marketing strategies. So mine is a combination of lots of different techniques. So just a quick introduction. I don't think anybody else has bothered to do as many slides as this, but I'm the founder and CEO of Leicester Digital. I've been in digital marketing for 20 years, which is quite scary. In fact, only a year less than Dixon. And I've been running Leicester for 15 years. So there's a few pictures just to sort of show some of my hobbies and my family and our wonderful team. This is an old pub, which is our office. So if any of you haven't visited us, you're very welcome to come over. And this is my grandkids and my daughter and my hubby. So what I'm going to cover is a little bit about why it's important to integrate. That's the first point.
And then 3 main strategies around consistent content, the use of data from one platform to another, and also a load of remarketing and audience strategies. Okay, so the real reason why we need to have an integrated strategy is because we want to get people at all the stages of the buying or the sales funnel. And so if we can integrate across different platforms, we can get them at different points. And also, because they're going to see you at different points, you're going to need to have the consistency of the message. The other real reasons why you need to do this is because there's lots of economies of scale. So, for example, when we start talking about content strategies, if you can create a piece of content once and use it in multiple places, then that's going to be really powerful. So, first of all, just a quick summary of some of the techniques. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because most of the paid social objectives and campaign objectives are based around the sales funnel and the different things that you might want to do to interact with the client at different stages. So the first one is awareness, which might be a reach ad or a video ad, video view ads. Then we come down to the considerations phase, which is often where we want to try and get people over to your website where they can actually interact and see your content. And then finally, what you really want to do is get through to a conversion stage. Now, the conversion can happen within a platform or it can happen on your website. So there's various different ways of doing that. But one of the most powerful things you can do is you can use either a series of sequential messages at each of these different stages or create audiences based on people at each of these stages and then drive them down the funnel. So that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about. So if you look at that, instead of it being vertical, we've now got a horizontal funnel, and actually look at some of the techniques that you can use, you can see that we often use paid social, display, YouTube, but also things like TV on demand, got Sky, Spotify ads. A lot of these will give you lots and lots of reach and allow a lot of people to see your content and make them aware of you and what you're offering. We can also combine that with other techniques which are more known in search, such as organic social, SEO, PR, and that will also help drive people over to your product and your content pages. Now, the key to this, and I'm going to put a bit of a caveat at the moment because, of course, at the moment we can use cookies to do remarketing strategies, and a lot of this is going to change, so you really need to take advantage of it while you still can, is that if you can get them over to your website and you can tag them with a cookie from an advertising campaign, platform, you can then do a further campaign where you can really re-engage with them. So that's what we're going to do over on the right-hand side with various types of conversion campaigns. And you don't run this all in order. You know, you don't have one group of people just doing one thing after another. You will run a lot of this in parallel. And the other thing that you will want to do is you will want to create negative audiences, because if you've already, I mean, how annoying it is when you go and buy something and then for the next week you're shown adverts for the same thing, where you've actually bought that product or that's, you know, been on their website, and suddenly everywhere you go, you get shown the same ad over and over again because they haven't taken you out of the funnel because you've just purchased. So what we need to be doing is a bit more smarter with these sequential campaigns. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention, and this is data from Universal Analytics, which hopefully most of you will recognise. This is in the multi-path section under conversions, right at the left. Right down on the bottom, is that user journeys are really complicated. Now, normally when I present this data, the secondary dimension, which is in the middle, I would normally put the key phrase, so you'd actually be able to see the key phrase as well. But because I didn't want to give away who the client was, I've tried to keep it quite simple. But you can see quite quickly that a lot of these journeys involve multiple channels and multiple attempts at going back to the website. Also, certain things happen at the beginning, but also can happen at the end as well. Now, what you often find is that the end of the journey, the last click, is often a brand phrase, which could be in PPC, it could be in organic SEO, or it could be a direct visit. But if they hadn't have seen that paid social ad, or they hadn't interacted with you in another way, could be even offline, they would never have found you in the first place. So these paths are becoming very, very complicated. So the concept of attribution and being able to understand which one's contributing is really important. And one of the things that I was talking about, Emil, who's in the audience at the back today, is about the fact that whenever we turn on a lot of paid social advertising, we often get a lot of direct traffic, which is also generating a lot of revenue or sales. It's not being attributed back to paid social, but we often think that there's a direct relationship. Now, if you remember from Greg this morning, what he said was the direct category within a report is often the throw-all, catch-it-all, pick up everything else, including a lot of mobile traffic due to things like iOS 14, where basically you're not really giving the credit to where it's due. Okay, so we have to take a lot of that into consideration. The other reason it's important is for many people in this room, and obviously in the other room as well, the user journey isn't all online, it can be offline as well. So a little while ago, I created something called the consideration conversion matrix, which is really how a customer or potential customer will interact with you. So first of all, the consideration process is where they start to do their research. That can happen online or offline, but the point that they convert can also happen online or offline. And I think, I don't know if Boots are in the audience, because obviously Ollie was, oh yeah, the guys at the back. This is really important to them, because how the hell do you track all of these different stages? So if you look at a purely, the old way of doing things, which was, retail, which obviously Boots do, all those transactions are happening in person within a shop. Now, if you compare that with e-commerce or a SaaS service, that's all happening online. Now, it doesn't mean to say that they aren't interacting with you with other ways, because they might pick up the phone and speak to somebody, but that's the two ends of the extreme. But you've got things in between. You've got the concept of showrooming, where what will happen is they'll do the research in store, they'll go and sit on a sofa, and then they'll try and find it, and they'll try and buy it at the cheapest price on Amazon, for example. And then the opposite, where they do the research online, but then they want to go and feel and sit on the sofa, so they do it the other way round. So you've got all these different combinations of the way that you can interact. And this is going to make things very, very difficult. So I'm not sure how many of you noticed earlier on that we talked about how if we generate a lead, we want to track that through to a sale. And a lot of the work that we do is bringing back what happens after we generate a lead to find out what happens in a sale in a CRM system. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the idea of content that's used once and created once and used in lots of cases. And this is all about having audience-first content. It's segmentation, which is a classic marketing term, which we've been talking about for years, and how we can integrate our content marketing strategy across lots of channels, and then how we can use content and reuse, create content and then reuse it a lot of different ways. So if you look on the right-hand side, you can see that in a lot of cases, what we do is we create content which we sort of aim at everybody, and then hopefully the ones in red, which are our target audience, will appreciate it. Well, what we can do instead is if we can look at the audience and break them down into different targets or different segments, we can personalize our content and actually create content that's specific. So if anybody saw Ariel's presentation, he was talking about if you've got a membership or a logged-in client, you can actually change or personalize the content depending on who the audience actually is. Now, what we try and do is we try and integrate our strategies across a lot of our projects are multi-channel. So if we look at search, social, and PR, the common thread that goes through all of this is the content that you actually create. So if we can create a great piece of content and use it in multiple different ways, you're going to get a lot more benefit for it. Now, our original concept of this was really a conversation I had about 10 years ago when somebody said they were doing 20 Twitter posts a day. And I said, wow, that's amazing, you must be writing so many blogs and so much content, your website SEO must be amazing. And they turn around and say, oh no, we don't write any content on our website, we just do a post. And I looked at them and sort of, me being really honest, said, well, don't you think you're wasting a bit of time there? Because that Twitter post, I was probably slightly more rude than that, to be honest, because I'm a little bit, I tell people what they need to know, not what they want to hear. And they didn't want to hear about the fact that they were wasting a huge amount of time. And it was a simple solution. Well, why don't you post 2 or 3 times a day, but write content on your website that actually is there and it's going to be there for a long time. It's going to get you the SEO benefit. And then you can use it in lots of other places. And this diagram really explains that. So, of course, we want to optimize our content. We want to create hygiene content on the products and service pages. We want to keep creating great blog content. And then what we also want to do is we want to use that to attract links, because link building and building your domain authority is such an important part of SEO. And what we also want to do is we want to create new content that's fresh and engaging and is relevant to the target audience of the time. Now, if you then compare that with a social media strategy, what you can do is you can use social media to distribute that content to either an engaged audience, or by paying for paid social, you can get it to a new audience. And you can get it, because of the funnel and what I was talking about earlier on, you can get that content to different people at different stages of the funnel. And also you've got customer reviews, which we're going to hear about in a little while, but people will take notice of your content if other people are talking about it rather than you. And then the other thing you can do is combine that with a PR strategy. Now, digital PR is really, really fashionable. We've been doing PR in some form for about 7 years, maybe 8 years, but we do both traditional PR and we do digital PR, because that story, if you can get it in the press, but then get it on their website as well, then that's going to give you link opportunities. And sometimes that's much easier to get than some of the more technical ways of building up your authority. But a lot of these are very integrated, because you can use social media to get in front of journalists or to actually find out the stories that they want to hear about. So this is a sort of strategy which I think is relatively common now, but I started talking about this, as I said, about 5 years ago. And the concept is not just to keep piling out low-quality content, but to focus and create that skyscraper content, which means that you're trying to create the best content that's out there and be really relevant and do something new and spectacular around that topic, so that your target audience are going to be really interested in it. So I think most of you have seen our A10 book that I wrote a couple of years ago. Well, we did that with this. We wrote a really good piece of content, and then we've utilised it in multiple ways, both offline and online. And so what you do is you then break the content up into different elements, which can then be distributed through a whole range of channels. So, for example, if we generate an email, we don't write the content of what we're talking about in the email, because normally it goes off to a blog that's already there. So what we're doing is using the email as a way of distributing the content. Or we create a video, and we might use paid advertising in YouTube or Facebook, or if it's B2B, LinkedIn, because actually that's one of the cheapest types of LinkedIn ads is video views. And then this means that there's just many ways of getting your content in lots of different formats to lots of different people. So one piece of content can be broken down and used in many ways. Okay? So my second strategy is where it becomes slightly more technical. And this is because we've got a combination of SEO tactics in here, and also some PPC tactics, some Google search tactics as well. So what I tried to do is I tried to visualize this. You can see I'm a bit of a bullet point sort of girl, so I tried to put a few graphics in. So if you can imagine, you've got SEO content over here on the left-hand side. You've got different types of Google ad campaigns. So this is, in the middle is the standard text, the classic one you're all used to. We then got shopping ads, which are generated by having a shopping feed from your website. The top one is dynamic search ads, DSAs. Now, the only way I can describe this to people, it's like paid SEO. So basically, what Google does, you don't give it a list of key phrases. You say, go and search that category on, say, children's toys, and find all the relevant content. And then if somebody searches for, I don't know, teddy bears or boys, 5-year toys, 5-year toys for 5-year-old boy or whatever it is, then anything that matches that or the content of the site is then shown in an ad. And the ad is created dynamically to match the content of the page using the titles and descriptions. So as I said, it's like a paid SEO. And then we've also got channels over here like shopping ads in Amazon and Pinterest and eBay to a certain extent. So let's see how we can get them to work together. So first of all, and I've been doing this for nearly 20 years, one of the things we find is that if you do paid search first, you can identify the key phrases that drive conversions, they drive the sales, and they actually can drive leads as well. Now, if you just randomly chose the key phrases that you thought that were going to work in SEO, and you went because they were good, relevant phrases, and they were good volumes and low difficulty score, but you've got no idea whether they can actually generate any sales. So one of the good things you can do is you can use the paid search successful key phrases and use that in SEO. We'll go into a bit more detail in that minute. The other thing that we can do is if you've got great SEO or great content over here, then that helps to generate better DSA ads because the content of the page is used in the DSA ads. And then also with shopping ads, the product pages are used to create the feed, which then generates the shopping ads. So can you see how if you go back to the root of the page, that's all going to help each other. Now, the other thing is if you're doing PPC and you've got a load of great key phrases, you can then also apply them to Amazon and Pinterest, okay? So I'm just going to go through those in a little bit more detail. So the thing about PPC is historically we had to bid on key phrases. Now, what's happening is that Google basically wants anybody, I've got to be really careful what I say here, however naive or however new they are to PPC, to be able to set up an account and run it and spend loads of money, and I would have said something else, but we've had enough swearing from Greg today, absolutely loads of money on Google Ads, irrespective of whether it works or not. And so they're trying to make automation the sort of norm. So what they've done is, we've had to tolerate a lot of this, and we've had to learn by a lot of mistakes, is they created shopping ads, I think about 5 years ago, I don't know if any of the in the room will remember, where they used to be free. We used to have free merchant centre feeds into the shopping results, and then they commercialised it, and then you could basically show your product based on your feed which went through the merchant centre. So you could get your website, produce a product feed, put it into merchant centre, then create your Google Ads. More recently, and we're talking a couple of years now, they started to go down the dynamic search ads route, which was where you basically said it's really, really good for massive sites, property sites, recruitment, cars, some of the ones that Ariel was talking about, where it would take you literally weeks or months to do the key phrase research. So let Google do the work for you. And also, about 15% of all key phrases have never been searched for before. So it's a really good way of mining key phrases and finding new key phrases. So those don't require you to add your own key phrases. And, but the interesting thing is the majority of them do allow you to see what they actually typed in. Now, I'm going to put a bit of a caveat with that because some of the new types of shopping ads, such as Smart Shopping, Performance Max, don't give you as much information. So they're giving us less and less information all the time. But it does mean you do get some search report data. And then that means you can create a text ad if you want, or you can use it to create negatives to stop you being shown for the stuff you don't want to be shown for. So the whole thing about this is that if you get this data, you can then find out which search terms actually generated a sale or a lead and how much money you made. So that means, of course, you can use that data to optimize your paid media campaigns, but the most important thing is the search term data can be used to plug into your SEO strategy. So if your SEO is being done by one team and your PPC is being done by another team, and they never talk to each other, or they don't use the tools which overlap, you're wasting a massive opportunity. Other data that can be used is things like the ads. It's really easy to test ad copy and play around with ads in PPC. We do it all the time, do experiments. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to improve the click-through rate, to improve the quality score, so we pay less and it doesn't cost us much. And what you can do is use that content that works. So if it works in one system, why couldn't it work as an SEO indicator in the titles and descriptions over in SEO as well? So learn from your PPC and apply it back to SEO. Similarly with landing pages. So landing pages, if you've got a brand new site, and I know we've been given a hard time about bounce rates today, bounce rates can be useful if they're done properly. You know, if you track events and things and people on the page, it can be useful. But if you know that you can improve the effectiveness of your site and by driving traffic to it, when you've got a brand new site, you've got no traffic to it, and you don't know if your site's going to work. So one of the things that we find, if we have a brand new website, it can take 3 months to get that website into really a state where you should be spending any money on it at all. And there's a few people in the room who know exactly who I'm talking about, because sometimes these websites are awful and we really don't want to spend loads of money on them, but that's the only way to try and improve the site. So the thing about that is if you can make an improvement to the landing page of the actual website, not only is it going to improve your SEO traffic and the conversion rates of those pages, but it's also going to improve your PPC as well. Because the landing page quality is also a factor in quality score, and things like page speed are important for both SEO and PPC. So optimizing a landing page for UX and conversion can help both. Another thing that I really want to talk about is this automation, and I've already mentioned how the shopping ads and the dynamic search ads. But what I think is going to happen is, over the next few years, we won't end up choosing the key phrases at all. And the only information, I think Jono said this, that we can provide is the actual web content itself, and maybe a few other clues about the audiences that you might want to target. So what this means is that if you get to a point where Google is you're not providing any key phrases anymore, the only way you're going to be able to give any clues to Google is by having a website. So what that really means is that the performance of all these different types of campaigns is very much going to depend on how Google views your pages. So if you've got a really crap website, and I've seen this with new websites where the titles and descriptions are terrible, they don't get shown up in shopping ads because there's no clues to help Google determine what your content's about. So with Google Shopping, what we do is we optimize the shopping feed. Now, sometimes you want to do that using separate tools, but you can also do that in Merchant Center, which is like the bridge between the two. And Google actually announced, was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago, they're going to provide a whole load of new tools to allow you to optimize your shopping feed. But why stop with your shopping feed? Why don't you go all the way back to your website and improve the page content on your website? And then that way, you get the SEO benefits, which you could do with DSAs, SEO, and also then shopping ads as well. So I tried to explain this in this diagram. So the old way of doing things was to select the key phrases and get text ads. Then we started to have the different automation methods. So we've got a website that will plug in and drive your DSA ads, your dynamic search ads. And then we've got the product feed, which actually comes from the website, which drives the shopping ads. Now, I think that if you just optimize the product feed, although you can do that, and there are reasons why you sometimes have it different from your website, because sometimes you want different information, so I'm not negating that argument. But if you can go all the way back and optimize your website for both SEO and PPC, then it's going to benefit all of this. So my hypothesis is that once you get to a point where you don't need or you can't choose key phrases anymore, you've absolutely got to do this. So you've got to get your website right. So what I think is going to happen is I hate to say this, guys, but I think the SEO and PPC teams are going to have to start working together a little bit more. And I think they'll start to converge because the signals that the things that you do in one is going to influence the other. Now, what we've done at Anico is we've now got pods, which I know is a bit of strange terminology, but we have multifunctional teams working on sets of clients because we've recognised that this is going to be something that's happening more and more. And so the tools that we use, that we get all this data from, can be used across both channels. I'll just quickly mention that you can also use some of these key phrases for things like Amazon and Pinterest, but as I'm mainly focusing on search and social, we'll go on to the next one. Okay, so my third lot of talks is around remarketing strategies. And so I quickly want to explain, hopefully you all know what website remarketing is. Basically, somebody goes to your website, doesn't matter how they got there, they get tracked with a pixel from whatever ad platform it is, and then they go somewhere else and they will see an ad, okay? And that will usually be because they've been put into an audience, maybe related to what they've seen or where they've been on the site. Now, in Google, where possible, it's worth making your audiences in analytics because you can use great combinations. And I think Ed was talking about how much better this is going to be in GA4. And then you've got the choice of overlaying those audiences on top of your existing campaigns and using it in what we call observation mode. And then what that means is that you can sort of, if one does really, really well and you start to notice, oh, people that have come to Pinterest actually are converting much better, why don't we bid a bit higher for those? That would be a good example. But if you have a load of people that have come from a website and you've already sort of filtered out who you want, so they came, say, from Facebook ads and they've come to your website, you know that they're the people you're targeting, then you can actually just show their ads to that audience. And RLSAs, if you are not aware, we call that remarketing lists for search. It's actually, if all of us went and searched for something today and the same term in Google, we'd all see different results. Because depending on where we've been, people would bid higher for us or lower for us. And so that's what we mean by remarketing lists for search. Obviously, we can use this to maximise the performance, but we can also create similar audiences. If we know we've got an audience that's performing really well, then we can try and find more of them. So I just wanted to go through some of the different types of sequential campaigns. So let me just go through this. So if you have a sequential campaign, what you can do is you can go from awareness to conversion within the same audience, but what you can do is see two different ads. And you do that a lot in Facebook and Instagram. Another type is where you show somebody an ad. We do this a lot with video view ads. And if they view the video, we then put them into an audience, which we then use to create a second campaign where we really want to retarget to them. And then we usually use some form of conversion campaign. And then this is a slightly different one again, because this is what we call cross-channel conversions or remarketing. And this is where you engage with somebody in one channel, say maybe Facebook, and then you say, hey, go and download our amazing garden furniture guide on our website. They go to our website, they're tagged, and then what happens then is that they will then be remarketed to when they do a shopping or when they do a search. So that's like a two-stage process. I won't go through all this, but this is how you can do it with various different combinations. So either in Facebook, within LinkedIn. But the other interesting thing is if you link your YouTube account and your Google Ads account, you can do video views in YouTube, and then you can remarket to them over in Google Ads. So this is the concept of doing these two stages. So I just wanted to show you a simple and more complex version of that. So if you are targeting the blue guys, and you've got all the red people there, the first type would be to have a single step where you try and get them to engage with your video, or you do some form of engagement campaign. And then what would happen is they would then, all the people that watched the video, say 75% of it, or they clicked on your Facebook ad or YouTube or whatever it was, we would then put them into a new audience, and then we would then filter down and then target those. So this is really good when advertising is very expensive, because video views tend to be cheap, so you only spend the expensive advertising on a smaller audience. A slightly more complex way of doing this is when you actually take them off-site, and this is more like a cross-channel strategy. So, but you can do it again, But this time, when they click the first ad, they see the first ad, they click through and go over to your website. And then from there, you can do the second stage in a completely different platform, and that gives you a cross-channel, okay? I'll quickly zoom through this. So creating your custom audiences is creating your own audience. So if you're not familiar with this, there's lots of different ways of doing this. Now, I know I'm going to run out of time, but some of they call them different things, but nearly every platform allows you to create your own custom audience. And the main ways of doing it is you can even upload your own list from your own email. It is getting harder and harder to match it up. And each of the platforms has different minimum sizes. So the easiest one to do this is actually in Facebook and Instagram, because the number of people you required is sort of less than 100, whereas LinkedIn it's over 300, and some of the Google channels is over 1,000. You've also got previous visitors on the website, and you've got activity in the platform. So that's if they've seen an ad and they re-engage. And then you can also create these lookalike audiences. So if you've got your perfect audience and you want more of them, then you can absolutely create a similar audience based on that, or a lookalike audience. It's just called different things in different channels. So that's just for reference. You can get that later. That's a little bit about lookalike audiences. So I just wanted to give you the idea of honeypots. Now, this is something we talked about a few years ago. And I just wanted to sort of talk about it in a little bit more detail. But the idea of honeypots is that you can get anybody to your website through any method. This could be an ad in the local paper with a vanity page. It could be a blog article that gets loads of traffic. It could be a Facebook ad. It doesn't matter how they got to your site. What you then do is, if they've engaged with some content on your site, and this is where the idea of a honeypot comes in, you give them a guide or some useful content that they want to engage with, you can then build a list based on the people that watched or went to that content. And then what you can do is you can then target them at the point that they're actively searching. And then that means you've narrowed, and this is the targeting method that I mentioned earlier, so that only the people that are actually looking for your product or service you're prepared to pay for, and you don't have to pay for all the other crappy users that may not be relevant to you. So this is a good way of narrowing it down. Okay, I'm not going to go through any more because I know we're short of time. You will get the slides later. I just got a little bit more detail on the cross channels, but what I will do is I'll flick through to the final session. Let me go through. So there's lots. I just want to mention this. One of the things that we've not talked about is the demise of cookies and how the hell we're going to track everything. So what you can do now in a lot of these ad platforms is if you can update your own data, so if somebody goes to your website and they buy or they fill in a form, if you feed that back through things like Google Enhanced Conversions and start to tell Google that information, they're starting to collect a lot more data. Now, a lot of the optimization techniques that we use in paid social and paid search are based on conversions. I want to get the most revenue I can, or the best CPA that I can. And if you can provide better quality data, then that's going to make that much more effective. I'm not going to show you how to set it up, but it's all secure and it's all encrypted. And I think key takeaways. So I've missed a few of the cross-channel techniques because of time. But what I wanted to talk to you really in the summary is how if you can integrate your strategies across multiple channels, then you're going to find that these three aspects of content, creative, which Tom's talking about, data and audiences, just gives you a lot of power to do lots of different things. And this is being driven by this automation. It's also been driven by privacy and audience targeting changes. So what we're going to see is as keywords disappear, PPC, I'm being told to hurry up. I'm on my last slide. So what I think is going to happen is that SEO and PPC search is going to be considered as almost one subject. And I think it's really important that if you've got disparate teams that you start to look at that. And I do think that eventually there won't be key phrases. You won't choose key phrases anymore. So any information you can provide using your own data, first-party data, is going to be very, very important. And there's so much you can do with audiences, remarketing, cross-channel, etc. That's going to really add to your armory. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have the automated, those new users, the virgin Google users, the virgin Facebook users who'll just set it up and let Google make, or Facebook make the decisions, and then the people that know their shit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You managed to unmute just at the moment where she swore, Katie, and we got it twice round.
Professionality at its best.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone will notice that I'm definitely not Anne. I was Matt. I'm hiding in the chat. I'm pretty sure some of you would have seen me before, but yeah, very, very interesting talk from Anne. I think the reality is we do definitely need to get much better at integrating our search and social marketing strategies. I think the power of data now is so huge that in reality to not use that data as effectively as possible across all the channels that we've got, and using our customer lists on both sets of channels, using remarketing across both sets of channels, collecting those audiences and using them to their maximum capacity. I suppose it's so important. So yeah, like what were your thoughts, Katie?
Having managed a lot of integrated campaigns at the Woodland Trust, Interflora, and various other companies, it's essential you get it right, and it's all about the journey and understanding that people have so many different touch points during the day, and to understand that it's about the funnel and raising awareness. And being, if you're trying to drive acquisition, giving people more reason to buy, and then it's all about the remarketing really to that person. I ran so many different campaigns in the past and used online and offline kind of channels, and it is about being very clever, utilizing your budgets in the right way and just being really switched on. I haven't really seen any questions, Matt. I think Anne was so thorough that there's no questions today. But
no, absolutely. I think
just a minute, just in case.
One key takeaway from my point of view, I think one maybe a helpful tip, I suppose, for those of you that use Google Ads at the moment, and maybe for those of you that don't as well, this could be something that's worth testing out. But Anne talked about DSA, dynamic search ads, throughout that talk. Now, my perspective is that one thing that's quite tricky to do is ever truly understand what Google's perspective is on our website, what the understanding of our website is, and all the individual pages on that site as well. One sneaky trick that we can do with dynamic search ads is quite literally, if we're to use dynamic search ads, put in one of the URLs from our site into Google Ads and let Google Ads run just for, a day, a few days, maybe to a week. Then what we'll start to do is we'll start to get a very quick idea based on those search term reports that Anne discussed as well, what Google's understanding is of our website. Have a look at what the search terms were that Google is sending to those pages. And then you'll know very, very quickly, does Google understand my page to be, if you're a commercial window cleaner, for example, does Google send traffic to my site for commercial window cleaning if I send it to the commercial window cleaning page? Or are you getting loads of mix and match traffic? Are you getting, industrial cleaning? Are you getting office cleaning rather than the terms that you were expecting? If that's the case, then maybe you need to look at rewriting the content on that page. Maybe you need to reconsider some of the elements on that page as well. So just a bit of a sneaky trick on how DSA and Google Ads in particular can help you gain an understanding of Google's understanding, I suppose, of your site.
Okay, I'm just trying to access something quickly. Just regarding today, if you'd be able to leave us a review, that'd be really well received. Just trying to find, doesn't seem to be here from last week. It's a bit weird.
Oh,
It was just regarding, obviously, this is part of a fundraiser that we're doing for Unicef, the Ukrainian fund. I'll just get you the link again. Usually it comes up as a review. Right, it's a bit strange. But yeah, if you do have a chance to donate, even if everyone donated a couple of quid each time we're doing these sessions, you know, it'd be really good for us and, you know, and the organisations, basically. It's such a worthy cause, and we just really do want to get the most out of you know, all this activity. Just trying to get also just a bit more information, because Anne wanted me to remind you. So we'll email this out probably as well. So we've got Callum McCaffrey from Reviews.io talking about the power of brand advocates next week, normal time. The week after, we've got Ollie Shea from Boots talking about driving innovation agenda that drives impact. We've got an SEO special on the 5th of August. Reporting special on the 5th of August, and the SEO specials on the 12th of August. It's all going to come out, you know, but we've got Shane Monaghan from Leemore coming in to talk about the power of voice and podcasting and social, and that's on the 19th of August. And Kenda MacDonald's coming in talking about fighting brains with marketing, looking at cognitive bias. That is just one to watch, and that's at the start of September. And as you're probably aware, we have got the on-demand webinar by Lee Chambers talking about well-being and searching for meaning in a social world. And we may have another one coming up from ATG if we can't fix a date with them. So, yeah, it's all happening. It's all happening. And, yeah, Barrington, good to see you on here. We've met a couple of times. Yeah, the recording will be available. You can catch up. The handouts are there to download. You can access everything you know you need to. And yeah, I think that's it for today. I don't know if there is any quick questions.
No, I think it was super thorough, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, some of those feature talks as well. You know, we've seen those guys talk at Leicester Digital.
Yeah, because I think if you attended Leicester Digital Live in person, as you know, there's 2 separate streams. So what's the benefit of this is you can just access things that you wanted to see, but just, you know, you always kind of prioritize events, don't you, Matt? And it's kind of, I'll go for that one. And sometimes you learn more from the things that are sometimes out of scope. So
yeah, without a doubt.
I think,
you know, it's that toss up between, do you want to listen to the talks about the things that you know a good amount about, because you might get like a small nugget of information that's sort of on top of the things you already know, or
especially for an integrated approach. Yeah,
exactly. Great. It's but fantastic. Cool. Thanks, Katie.
We have just got a bit of a last minute question in. How can we access search term data, Matt? This is not something we see in our reports from their agency.
Okay, very interesting. So this is quite a common question, actually. Essentially, within Google Ads, if you're running regular search campaigns, if you're running dynamic search ad campaigns, or if you're running manual shopping campaigns, then you'll have access within your campaigns, within the Google Ads dashboard. You'll find under the keyword section, there's a search term reports section. And that would show you a list, depending on the date range that you've got, of all the search terms that you've seen for those campaigns historically. However, if you are running smart shopping, or now that's performance max campaigns, in reality, you don't get given that search term report data. You get what's known as insights, which give you a bit of an idea of what search terms people have roughly been using, but it doesn't give you that exact search term data. So it's a bit of an odd one recently. I think it's the sort of information that, to be honest, on a managed campaign, if you have an agency that manages that for you, realistically, the likelihood is that they use that to optimize. They use that information to optimize your campaigns as time goes by. or theoretically that's what should be happening. But it might be well worth asking. I would envision that if you've got all these different types of campaigns, if you've got search campaigns and DSA campaigns running, then they would be more than happy to provide some insight on the search term reports.
Yeah, never be afraid to ask for more.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'll end on that. So have a great Friday. Good to see you all here. Thanks for coming, and we'll be seeing you next week. Okay. All right. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.